Welcome to the Common Good Podcast, a conversation about the significance of place, eliminating economic isolation, and the structure of belonging. This is Joey Taylor, the producer of the podcast, and for this week's episode, we're bringing you a snapshot of the abundant community conversation from last week with Parker Palmer, Peter Block, and Amy Houghton. As we did during the conversation, we'll begin with Parker's poem, Everything Falls Away, and then we'll fast forward to Amy asking Peter and Parker a question. So take a deep breath, settle in, and listen to this poem by Parker. Everything falls away. There's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. William Stafford. Sooner or later, everything falls away. You, the work you've done, your successes, large and small, your failures too. Those moments when you were light, alongside the times you became one with the night. The friends, the people you loved who loved you, those who might have wished you ill, none of this is forever. All of it is soon to go, or going, or long gone. Everything falls away except the thread you followed, unknowing all along. The thread that strings together all you've been and done, the thread you didn't know you were tracking until, toward the end, you see that the thread is what stays as everything else falls away. Follow that thread as far as you can, and you'll find that it does not end, but weaves into the unimaginable vastness of life. Your life never was the solo turn it seemed to be. It was always part of the great weave of nature and humanity, an immensity we come to know only as we follow our own small threads to the place where they merge with the boundless whole. Each of our threads runs its course, then joins in life together. This magnificent tapestry, this masterpiece in which we live forever. Here's Amy.
Parker, you so beautifully communicated in the poem that we began with, that the more we let go of this ego, of this self, and really open to the diversity of life, to connecting into something much larger than us, then we actually return back into a sense of home that we're always longing for, this sense of belonging that I'm hearing each of you speak to. And so I'm wondering, from a practical standpoint, as two men who've been in this work for a very long time, say a little bit around what your experiences of that has been, as each of you have really grown into your sense of Parker Palmer and Peter Block. How have you continued to stay connected into that sense of home and this expansiveness of the universe?
Peter, I'd love to hear your answer to that.
Well, it may be that the stranger is where I find where I belong. My own story was that I grew up as a wandering Jew. I thought I was a gypsy. And for the first half of my life, every time I moved, there was nothing that I missed. And then I came to Cincinnati, and I was here thinking I was here because of Kathy. And after a while, I said, well, maybe there's some other reason. And part of the vulnerability for me was whether I went public in my hometown. Because if I'm public in another person's town, I can go home and not have to live with any consequences of my action. And when I started to get involved in Cincinnati and decided I'm no longer a gypsy, I found a place where I belonged. I was on a city council, neighborhood council. It was transformative to me. And that was huge. Now you ask me who I am, I say I'm a citizen of Cincinnati. And so that's been my shifting. And I was going to write a book on community, and my wife said, Peter, don't you think you should try it first? And I thought, good idea. And so I did. I got involved in my neighborhood, and then I wrote the book. And so that's kind of my discovery now. And it's not that it's that satisfying or rewarding. And I think, well, what difference have I made? And I can't declare any victory. But I found a place where I know the backstory of my neighborhood. When things are going on, I know how people really feel about it, and it's changed everything for me.
Well, thank you. Amy, I'll respond to your question from just a little different angle. Well, feeling gratitude for everything that Peter just said, because that's part of my story too. I think for me, to wander away from true self, which is a concept that has meaning for me from Thomas Merton. To wander away from true self is to end up in ill health. I believe in something called the self. I believe in it as a birthright gift. Does that mean that it remains solid and static through a lifetime? No, of course not. I think of true self almost as I think of genetic material, which we have learned through the science expresses itself differently under different situations. So even genes aren't solid blocks of continuity through a lifetime. They respond differently to different things. They, in that sense, evolve and grow either individually or as a system. And what I found is that the signs of ill health for me are signs that I'm wandering away from true self. It's one of the reasons I've written several times in my books about my several descents into clinical depression, which, as you know, is a very real phenomenon for millions and millions of people around the world, and for those who have to live with them, sit with them, try to walk with them and support them. I've probably heard more about my writings about depression than I have about any other single subject that I've written about, even though that's not what gets the professional goodies, where it's sometimes regarded as a weakness. But to me, writing about depression, once I got to the point of being able to acknowledge that this was part of who I was, which takes time to be able to get to the point where you can say, I am all of the above. I am my strengths. I am the light that I have the opportunity to bring. I am also my darkness. I am my weaknesses, my failures, my descents into hell. What really strikes me, and Peter and I are roughly of an age, I think I maybe have a year or two on him, but I'm 84, and one thinks at this age more about one's mortality. That's partly where everything falls away came from, right? And this notion that your life never was the solo act you thought it was. What strikes me at age 84 is that I cannot imagine a sadder way to die than realizing with your last breath that you never showed up in the world with the wholeness of yourself, because now that opportunity is gone. I can imagine more painful ways to die, but I can't imagine a sadder way to die. And so writing about shadow as well as light, trying to be present to the people in my life in a way that acknowledges I am all of the above, is for me an act of self-therapy, which goes far beyond the needs of the self. It extends into the capacity to relate to other people. Some of the deepest relationships in my life with people I know well and people I barely know at all have been around the darkness of depression, that shared experience, and the sense, as Ram Dass once said, that we're all just walking each other home. We can walk alongside each other with these hard struggles. This question of personal health and social health are intimately related. If we are in the world as self-impersonations, no community is possible, because you can't connect to an illusion. You can't relate to a non-person, and that's what a self-impersonation is. If we're in the world with our own truth, to the extent it's humanly possible, it's like Leonard Cohen says, ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. And that's how we connect heart to heart as well.
I think here's an opportunity for us to share just what's resonating, what's really capturing our attention. Parker, you just mentioned something, a really beautiful quote around walking one another home. So there might be something around that we want to actually speak to. What is our experience of that? I wonder if the two of you have something else maybe that you want to offer up as a possible question or prompt as we go into breakout rooms.
I was going to say that what Parker was calling it was welcoming the stranger within. And you might ask people, who are they walking home with?
Beautiful. Who are you walking home with? Maybe that's internally, maybe that's another friend.
Thanks for listening. You're invited to take a second before you go and consider who you're walking home. Check the show notes for more information about Peter, Parker, and Amy. And we'd like to thank Abundant Community, Design Learning, and Faith Matters Network for their partnership in this conversation. This episode has been produced by me, Joey Taylor, and the music is from Jeff Gorman.